With yesterday being the official first day of spring, we're really excited here at Dreaming Tree to start putting out spring content. And of course, with spring comes Easter. And we've got a really fun bundle for you guys for Easter. And it's really geared towards children more, or maybe not children, but it's definitely more fun and whimsical, I guess you could say almost. Without further ado, what we're gonna do is kind of get our feet wet, start putting some things together, and then once we've got all the little pieces kind of put together, we'll start assembling everything. So what I want you to focus on right now is find the little flowers, okay? Now you're gonna have two of these and two of these. You'll see that the scallops on this are a little bit more round. Okay, we want these pieces right now. These two pieces we're not really doing anything with, but I did run them through an embossing machine with, I think it's a Tim Holtz die, or not die, embossing folder, I should say. Okay, so real simple. Let's just kind of jump in, get our feet wet. You're gonna find these little pieces and we're gonna glue them to this piece here. You're gonna do that twice. Okay, just want to make sure that you get that nice and centered so you're not obstructing the little hole in the middle of this flower. Okay, so let's get that in place. And then we're actually going to curl these petals a little bit just to kind of flare them out a little bit, give them a little bit of dimension. Okay, and I kind of like that this flower here is a little embossed, so there's additional dimension, kind of accidentally, because of the embossing between this and this flower. It's casting a little bit of a shadow. I like that, and I'm not too overly concerned about getting the tips of that glued down, just as long as it stays in place. It's gonna look really cool. And then you can go ahead and curl these petals out just a tiny little bit, just to kind of give them a little bit more life. If you emboss this with a dot, don't push too hard, because you may end up inadvertently smushing the little dots that you created with your embossing machine. So be very gentle with the curl on this. Okay, there we go. All right, so we're gonna let these little pieces dry as we go, and can kind of move on to the next little thing here, that being our little flower for the inside of our panels. So we've got this piece in a nice blue, and then we've got this flower in that orange, and we're gonna get that glued down to the base here. And we're gonna do this twice as well. You wanna make sure that you get that glue out to the edge. And this guy should be symmetrical, so it shouldn't matter how you lay it down. It should fit perfectly no matter what. Okay. And then we also have this little flower here, which again, I'm gonna go ahead and curl these petals just to kind of give them a little bit of life, like so. And then we're gonna take and apply glue just around the ring here, the inner ring. Okay, and that looks like maybe a little bit too much glue. I'm just gonna dab that with my finger. And let's get that right in place here. Just make sure you're not obstructing that center hole, that cutout there. There we go. All right, so let's put that to the side and let's grab our next one. Again, if you kind of get the concept, you get the idea, you do not need to watch me do it again. You can definitely fast forward if you'd like, and kind of move on through it. Most of it's pretty self-explanatory. I think there's a lot of little pieces, so it is helpful to follow along to make sure that you don't miss anything. Okay, let's just lay that down right on top of the blue piece here. Make sure you've got it nice and lined up and flatten that out. And let's grab our second little flower here. Get that all curled. Okay, and again, I think I could probably go a little bit lighter on the glue with this. I'm just going to use a series of dots. That looks good. And nice and centered. Oops. Give that a nice push. There we go. Okay, moving along. All right, so let's take a look at our eggs. There's going to be 2 of these, and they're going to go on a panel on the inside. You're going to start with the large piece here, and then we're going to glue on, we're going to glue this piece on here. Okay, so it's going to look like this. This purple piece is going to go on like so. Okay, you want to make sure that, and actually I would probably start with this small full egg here, and let's get our glue on this guy here and get him glued into place. Just make sure that you're overlapping that correctly. There we go. And get our purple piece in place. Now there's a little cutout there to kind of help you with the alignment, so it's just like a little puzzle piece. And make sure that you get that nice and lined up. Okay, and push that down, make sure it's nice and flush. Okay, and then we've got little overlay pieces here. Oh. Now this piece here is going to go right here, so it's going to be another little puzzle piece sort of situation where it's going to line up with that purple piece. So let's get that in place. And just kind of using the contour of that existing piece there to help me with that, with the alignment there. And I also ran this through the little tiny dot embossing folder, which I believe is by Sizzix. I know Doris makes one. The dots are not as tiny, and they're a little more scattered. They're not as evenly placed. Okay, so this one here, just want to make sure that you get this lined up correctly. And that's going to look like that. And now this one comes in 2 pieces. So you want to just make sure that you can just start with either piece, really, it doesn't matter. Okay, and let's get that right there. Just make sure that it lines up nicely, like so. And then we've got this little piece that's going to go down here. It's going to contour this egg on the bottom. Okay, and that's going to create kind of a little stripe effect down the center of the egg. Okay, just follow that little curve there. That is going to be your guide. And there we go. So I don't know about you guys, but I know I have some friends that just love Easter because of kids. And Easter for me was more of a religious thing, not so much a bunny and chick thing. So I think my sister and I think we kind of accidentally experienced this. I mean, I come from a family that immigrated from Poland. And I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm actually, I came here when I was 2 or 3 years old as a refugee because of basically civil unrest in Poland, because of Cold War stuff that was going on, and didn't really know much about what to expect. But and again, Easter wasn't really celebrated the way it's celebrated here in the States. And I think that may be a European thing, or maybe that was just a sign of the times. I'm not really sure, but I know there's a lot more characters and such. I mean, I know that the chick is a sign of spring, and so are bunnies and things of that nature. So I'm sure that's pretty prominent, prominent sign of the time, you know, with new beginnings and such. But we were never really exposed to that much in our family, so don't have a lot of fond memories when it comes to getting Easter baskets or candies and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that I can't do it differently for the people around me. So this is a really cool little project, especially if you have some little kids in your life, grandkids, your own kids, or maybe a neighbor's child, or maybe just someone that just really loves Easter. This will be great for them. You can, it comes with a little basket, which we'll be putting together here in a little bit. And you can fill that little basket with little goodies, maybe even a little gift. You could definitely fit, like, first thing I think of is like a Pez dispenser with little candies. I'm kind of try to stay away from the sugar. But I know when you're a kid, it's like that's your fuel. But if you're making this for an adult, fill it with some delicious little chocolates. All right, so there we go. Our second set of eggs is now complete. We can put that off to the side. And why don't we go ahead and begin just piecing together some of the other pieces that require piecing. That was a mouthful. All right, so here is one of the little flaps that go on the inside. And, you know, we're going to be doing things twice because of the style of the box. So we're going to take this piece here and we're going to glue it down to the white piece there. So make sure that you get your glue out to the very edges and try to get a few in between the lettering here. I wouldn't obsess with it too much because it is a fairly small piece. Now just make sure that you get the ears aligned. Use that as kind of your guide. And if you have those in place, everything else should kind of fall into place nicely for you. Okay. Now while we're at it, we may as well take and fold at the score mark there, just to kind of get that to sit. And we have little ears for our cute little bunny. Just make sure that you get the right one on the right side. It should be kind of curving along with the contour of his face. So let's get that in place. And just make sure you get that nice and centered. There we go. Grab the other one. Nice even border around the ears. And there we go. Okay, also has a cute little nose, and there's a little marker there right in the center of his face to help you with the placement of the nose. So that's, whoops, there's a tiny little piece. I should probably get out my handy pick-me-up tool for this, because this is really tiny. Okay. And just get that nice and centered. Make sure the point is pointing down. Again, use the little markers there to help you with the placement. Okay, and we do have two little cute cheeks for him. Just throw a little dot of glue on the cheek. And there are also little placeholders for the cheeks to help you get those nice and symmetrical. Okay, and we have a tiny little flower that's going to go just to the left of the Happy Easter caption. So let's just lay that down. Doesn't really matter how you place it. And we're going to probably jazz that up a little bit with a little bling. Now, because he's so small, there are two little indicators for where we want to place his eyes. I'm going to actually do that with a little bit of just a liquid pearl. I'm going to use a liquid pearl to draw his eye. And that isn't as round as I'd hoped it would be, but it'll work. There we go. Okay, now the rest of it, we're actually going to draw in with just a little pen. So, or this is just like a really, really fine tip marker. We're going to give him just two little eyebrows, just like that. And then I'm going to give him a little mouth by starting at the tip of the nose and just kind of going down and creating a J and then like a backward J. I kind of messed that up. That's okay though. Okay, now finally we have a little band, a little accent piece that we're going to put on the bottom of this little piece here. So we're going to put our glue on this piece and then just get that right onto the bottom so that it's nice and flush with the bottom of, in my case, the pink color. Okay. There we go. And we're going to bling this up with a little pearl or a rhinestone right there in the center. Okay, so that is the first one. I'm not going to walk you through the second one. I'm going to do that one off camera so that I can actually get my face in here as I'm doing the eyebrows and the mouth, but you get the idea. You're going to repeat that process with the other bunny. Okay, so we can put that off to the side. I've got the liquid pearls on there. We want them to set before we do anything crazy with them. Okay, now let's take a look at our little chick. Okay, and again, you're going to do this twice as well. So we've got our main base piece here, and we're going to put glue on this guy here. I'm going to start with just some dots up here by his hair because that looks like it might get a little too delicate. Okay, and then just work some glue out to the edges. There we go. And a few in between the little caption there. And again, just make sure that when you're lining this up, I would start with the hair up at the top to make sure that that is lined up. Use that as your starting point, and then everything else should kind of fall into place. Give that a good smush. There we go. Just like that. All right, and kind of doing it backwards this time, but we're going to put our little band at the bottom. And just make sure that that's nice and flush with the bottom. Okay, that looks good. Give that a little push. All right, so our little chickie has a little bow tie. I'm just going to use 3 little dots of glue on that. Less is more. And that's going to go right about here. Just make sure it's nice and centered and nice and level. Or if maybe he just, maybe his tie is a little, or his bow is a little crazy. This little piece here is his beak or her beak. And there is also a little guide there to help you with the placement of the beak. So let's get that in place. And then we also have little guides for the cheeks, these little rosy cheeks. And we'll just drop those right into place. Just nudge them a little bit, get them right in the correct location. Oops. This is where that pick-me-up tool really helps. But I can do it with my fingers too. That's a tad bit off. I'm going to Nudge it in a tad. Ooh. Let's drop some eyeballs. Again, there's two little notches there to indicate where we suggest. You can draw them in if you want. We kind of want to give it a little bit of dimension with the eyes. So I'm going to drop a little bit of these liquid pearls on here. And I'm going to do that kind of weird initially because they kind of pop up, but gravity eventually sucks them down, which is exactly what we want. And again, we're gonna draw in some little eyebrows on the chicks. I need to get my face like way into this right now. It's probably gonna block it, so you probably won't see that on camera. I'm gonna do it now. Well, you may be able to see it. You're gonna see the top of my head though. And just try to be symmetrical with it. Doesn't have to be perfect. And there you go, got our little chick. Okay, so you can go ahead and fold that at the score mark as well. And then put that off to the side. Again, you're gonna be making 2 of each of these. Okay, so, and actually my bunny doesn't look too bad. His mouth looks a little small. I could have made it more round, but I may have to fix that. I don't know, maybe not. It's probably okay. All right, so next thing here, just get another little thing out of the way. I probably don't even need to show you this. There's a little tag, okay, that's got this piece and then this little glitter piece here. And obviously you've got room on the back for a small stamp, or if you want to put the recipient's name on it, you can do that. But that goes on like this. You just want to make sure that the hole on the top layer is not obstructing the hole on the base layer. And that's actually also a good little guide to make sure that you've got it layered correctly. Okay, so there's a cute little tag. You can put that off to the side. And you can take a look at, now let's look at the base of this thing, because we're pretty much ready to start rocking with the, got all the little base pieces here in front of me. And show you here what we're looking at. So this piece here has a little T connected into it, and there are a series of little V's on each side. That's going to be a key little piece. You want to make sure that you don't use this for the base of your explosion box. This is going to be the base of your box. And then we have 4 sides because it is a box. I'm going to go through these really quick here. Okay, and then this piece is going to go in the middle after we put all 4 of our little animals in there. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look at the panels here. Again, as I mentioned, there's one little piece here with the letter T on it. This is going to be the top of the inside. Okay, and we've got the base here, and then there's 4 sides, because there are 4 sides to a box. And you'll notice that 2 of the sides have little markers on them. Okay, right here, these 2 have little markers on them. And that is for these panels here that go right here. And those little markers there coincide with these little points here. So that is to help you get those aligned. And then what we're going to do after we glue those on, we're going to use those to help us with the alignment of the rest of the panels. Okay, and that's going to help kind of set the tone to make sure that everything is lined up the same way. We're not gluing these together. I'm just putting them side by side just to illustrate where these are going to go. These are going to be the sides of the box. These are going to be the front and back. Okay, so we can actually go ahead and get these glued down. We're going to glue down the flat stuff. Some of this stuff is dimensional, and I don't want to glue that down just because we're going to be forming and constructing the actual box itself, and I don't want to mess anything up. So I got my texture side up. That is where I'm going to put these panels, and then on the inside we're going to be putting these along with our eggs and our little flowers. Okay, so you can go ahead and get started on that. Let me move this over a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna bring this a little closer to me. All right, so we're gonna grab this and I'm gonna get my glue on here. Now this is a DCWV paper. It's a white core. It's only got a pattern on one side. So I did ink this with a nice purple. Oops, oh boy. Getting a little careless here. Again, just make sure that you get those nice and lined up with those marks. And that looks good. Go ahead and push that down. Get it nice and set. Luckily, little areas where I dropped the piece are being hidden by the panel itself. So we're in good shape here. All right, so that is that. I'm gonna fold that just to get it ready. And I can do the same thing on here. Okay. And get that nice and lined up. Here we go. And push that down nice and flat. Had a little glue pop out there on the side, but that's okay. All right, so we've got these here. I'm gonna get them lined up, and we're gonna do these panels here. Just gonna lay that right next to this one here. And if you're using a striped pattern on this, just make sure that your pattern is going in the same direction. Just to kind of, it doesn't have to, but it'll look nicer if it does. Okay, so you see that the little stripes are going up and down there. And I'm just aligning it along with the other one there, just to make sure that they're all consistent. Do your best to make sure you've got that nice even border going all the way around. Push that down. And that looks great. Okay, so I'm just gonna move that over there. Grab my last one and find my last little panel. There we go. And let's get this glued down. And a little more over here. And that looks good. All right. Okay, so these two panels here are not going to, they're not going to have anything as far as designs go. These here, we're going to be putting this little flower on here. I'm going to do this later because I'm going to actually pop dot this so that there's a little bit of dimension. So I'm going to leave that for later. Okay, so now that these panels are on, you can go ahead and just kind of crease at the score marks. We're going to flip this over. Okay, now keep in mind that this is going to be, this is the top of the box, that's the bottom. So when this opens up, we want our little designs to be going this way. You don't want them this way. You want everything kind of coming out from the center. Okay, so with that said, you can go ahead and flip these over. Now on the inside, we have these 4 panels, which I've run through an embossing machine. I've also inked them with like a turquoise color. And we're gonna get these glued to the inside, nice and centered so that there's a nice little border going all the way around. Okay, and that's embossed, so there might be some areas where the glue kind of goes inside of the embossed area, but it's quite all right. Now this, I'm gonna make sure that when you place this, the borders on the top and bottom are gonna be a little bit thinner than the borders on the side. So do your best to spread that out so that it's nice and even at the bottom. It's not gonna match up with the sides. The sides are gonna be a little bit thicker, but the bottoms should be pretty similar. Okay, so just like that. What do we got going on here? Okay, let's grab our next little panel. Okay, I'm going to straighten this out so that I can align it better. Use my little guides on here as well to help me with the centering of this. There we go. That's much better. If you have one of these little cutting boards with the grids, it definitely helps with centering and things of that nature. So definitely pick one of these up if you don't already have one. Really, it almost reminds me of, I don't know how many of you actually use like Photoshop, but in Photoshop, when you're cropping things, they have little markers that come up to help you with such things as like the rule of thirds as far as photography goes and centering and all that good stuff. And I find it very, very useful. Okay, so again, get it nice and centered. And that looks about right. There we go. And the cool thing is they're gonna be like on opposite sides. So if they're like together like this, you may notice more if it's a tad bit off. But since they're on opposite sides, no one's really gonna notice if it's a tad bit off. So I wouldn't go too crazy worrying about it, but do your best to make sure that everything is nice and precise. Okay, and again, get that on my mat. And begin kind of eyeballing it. And that looks pretty much right about there. I think I might have turned it slightly last second there. All right. Okay, so we've got our panels on one side, we've got the panels on the inside. All right, now take a look at your panels here and pick out the two that have this little panel on the front. Okay, and with the flowers go the other flowers. Okay, and these flowers are going to go right here at to the bottom, flush with the bottom, and then we're going to glue these down just like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our glue on the back of this guy, and this will help us ensure that when it opens up, the little patterns inside are alternating, so we don't have two flowers next to each other. So it's going to create a nice little symmetry for us. Okay. Again, just make sure that the base of our flower is right at the bottom and that it's nice and centered. And then go ahead and place that down. And we've got a lot of dimension going on here, which is cool. Okay, just get that in place, give it a few extra seconds to really take hold. And we can always curl these petals back out after the fact, after everything is almost assembled. Okay, that looks good. All right, so grab the other one with the flower, and grab the other flower that we've already put together, and let's get that glued into place. Okay, I'm grabbing it by the thickest part here, and I'm just gonna kind of eyeball, make sure that I've got it nice and centered at the bottom, and then I'll just lay it out, lay it down. Oops, there we go. All right, and let's push that down, get it in place. That looks really cool with the multi-layers of embossing and then the little dimension on the petal. That just looks really, really beautiful and springy. Okay, so that one's done. So that just leaves the last two here. And on the last two, we're gonna put our little eggs on here. Okay, so we want that to be just nice and centered like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our glue on the back of this. Now this is kind of a thick piece, so you can go a little bit heavier on the glue and not worry about any like warping showing through or anything, because we've got a lot of layers going on there, so it'll be fine. And again, just make sure you get it nice and centered, just like that. And just push and hold that down. Again, we're gluing onto an embossed surface, so I want to be a little patient and let that really get a grip. Okay. Looks wonderful. That looks wonderful. Okay. One more little egg here. And I kind of noticed that I tend to, my glue strokes tend to kind of coincide with the shape that I'm working on. So they had a lot of ovals and circles there, and it just kind of went into a little circular rhythm. You know what? Now that I'm looking at everything here, we're getting close. Getting close to being done here, guys. We got a cute little basket to put together yet. And again, this is pretty much done. So is this. This is just gonna get a little flower on the front here. And you know what, we can probably just put that down right now. I don't think it's gonna hurt anything. Let me grab my little foam squares. I'm gonna foam square this more towards the center. Okay. And this process reminds me of a little comment that I read in the Dreaming Tree group. I didn't write down the name of the person, so I apologize for not remembering, but she said that she kind of cringes when I peel these off, because sometimes I use a razor blade, and she recommended tweezers, which I had a pair of, and I don't know where they are, so I just use this because it really has a nice fine tip. As long as I'm not crafting with a drink in my hand, I'll be okay. But I do appreciate the concern, because I have cut myself before and it wasn't fun. Okay, so we just get that nice and centered, and we can kind of flare these out a little bit more. Okay, just to add a little dimension to that, to the front of that. That looks nice. Let's grab our other one. It's right here. Grab this guy. And one thing that I mentioned in that comment, in my response, is that I've bought foam squares from Michaels and Joann's, and I think it's the Michaels brand where the backing actually comes off very easily. It's the Joann brand that doesn't. And I don't know if it's just because of the materials they use for the backing, or if one has more adhesive than the other. I really am not sure, but I did kind of discover that through playing with both varieties. Okay, so again, just make sure you get that nice and centered. Nice even border all the way around. Just kind of putting them towards the middle so that you don't really see them from the sides. Okay, so looks like we are headed towards working on our little basket here. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let's put together the lid for the box real quick, since it's a separate piece. All right, so we've got this piece here, and I'm going to do some gluing here before we actually start doing any folding or assembling. Since everything's nice and flat, I'm going to take this piece, which matches up with the little panels on the exterior. We're going to glue this right to the top. Okay, it doesn't really matter which direction you put this in, because the lid, you can always take it off and change the orientation of the stripes later on. So don't be overly concerned with which direction these stripes are going. Okay, and then we've got these tiny little guys here that are going to go in the center of the sides of our lid. And again, we haven't begun forming the lid yet, but that's actually to our benefit because we can actually eyeball the placement of these that much better because everything's nice and flat. Everything's nice and flat. I can see the nice straight lines. And I'm just going to go around, get these glued down, and put together our little lid. And then I'm going to put our little basket together. This is a really cute little project. I know explosion boxes have been and still are very popular. And this will be a hit, I'm sure. Okay. And again, just make sure you get it nice and centered. Should be a pretty even border going all the way around. If it's off a tad, don't worry about it. There we go. I just really like putting things together systematically so that there's no confusion and the process just goes together nice and smooth. Okay. All right, so now you can go ahead and fold everything at the score marks here. Now, one thing that you want to do, the little tab here, fold it back and forth a couple times. It's one thing that I wish I would have done in more of the previous projects because I know when you start assembling the lid, it helps that that's a little bit more loose so that it doesn't flare out. It seems to be seems to stay a little more straight. All right, so we're going to put a little bit of glue on this tab here. Make sure you get that glue out to the edge. Okay, and just connect it to its neighbor. Make sure that you've got it nice and aligned. Okay, and moving on to the next piece, next little tab here. Again, this is pretty repetitive, but I do want to make sure that you get it right. And you put the glue on that tab, fold this in, get it nice and aligned, and just squeeze. You can put that down on your surface if you want and use the table for added pressure, and that will help things kind of set quicker as well. Okay, that looks good. Nice and straight. All right, and let's get our glue on this tab here. There we go. And close that up. Nice. And last but not least, one more little tab here. Let's get that inserted to the inside of our lid. Let's get our glue down and get that out to the edge and close this shape up. And I got this thing out, Chris. Chris is my friend from Florida. She sent me this little juice glass. It's like a vintage piece. And she was hoping that I would put this in there and keep it upside down so I wouldn't have to shake it. But I think it's, I think me just not thinking about my glue is pretty much permanently ingrained in my brain now. And I don't know that that's going to change. Okay, so there is the lid, nice and constructed. Okay, you can put that off to the side, and that just leaves our little basket, and then we can go ahead and start putting this guy together. So let's take a look at our basket. Our basket is made up of these pieces here. And we've got this piece here, which has the bottom already connected, okay? Now, what you wanna make sure you do is find the two pieces that have the little holes in them and make sure they're on And make sure they're on opposite sides because that is where your handle is going to go. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to glue that to the inside here, like so. And then we've got a little liner piece that's going to go inside to cover that up so the interior looks really nice as well. All right, so what we're going to do is grab our glue and put it on this tab here. You want to actually put it on the patterned portion, okay, so that this pattern is outside. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this flat and kind of nudge it up like this, and then just push the tab over and glue it down like that. Okay, and I may as well, just so I don't mess up, grab my other piece with the little hole in it and get that glued down next. Okay, and again, just kind of using my surface to help guide this into place. Make sure it's nice and lined up. And just push the tab over. Give it a second to set. And that just leaves this little piece here. Get our glue on this guy here. And get that into place. And that should fit pretty much precisely in between those other two pieces. There we go. All right. Quick little assembly on the basket. Shouldn't take that long. All right, so now that we have it all together like that, we can go ahead and begin putting glue on each little tab here. Get that glue out to the edge. I want my basket to be beautiful. And just line that up with the other side here and push and squeeze. Get those two sides to bind. There we go. And I also inked this with a nice purple color as well. And that really helped because it is a white core. And sometimes those perforated lines don't always look the greatest. Okay, there we go. Just connect that piece to its neighbor. And just squeeze. This paper kind of takes ink weirdly, if that even makes any sense. Okay, next little tab here. Get our glue on there. Run that out to the edge. And connect that. That looks good. And after I get this together, I may go through again and just hit it with a little bit of ink again in case there's little white areas that are unsightly and I want to make it look nicer. But that looks good. Okay, so that just leaves one more little tab here. Whoops. You can clean up a lot of things with your finger as long as that glue isn't set. So definitely take advantage of the time that you have. Okay, there we go. And just close that up to form our little cute little basket. Okay. There we go. All right, so we do have this little piece here that's going to go inside of this to kind of strengthen and add a little pattern in there. You're probably not going to see it because I'm planning on filling this thing up with some green little grass and a bunch of cute little candies, maybe some Pez dispensers or whatever, but either way, get that in there. Just to close that, just to make it look a little nicer inside. Okay, next we're gonna grab this piece, these two pieces here, and these two pieces here. We've got a cute little doily pattern that's gonna go at the top, and then a nice little embossed pattern that's gonna go at the bottom. Find this little pattern here, and you wanna go ahead and score it, or fold it at the score mark. Let's take a look at this real quick here. Yeah, it should fold on top on top of itself. So if you get a weird score or a weird fold, just make sure it folds on top of itself. Okay, and what we're going to do with this is we are going to place it on the bottom like so. Okay, so let's start there. Let's get our glue on this little strip. It looks like an embossing folder may have split this paper a little bit. Probably won't be able to see that. As long as it stays together, it should be fine. Find a corner and just pop that right on the corner. Okay, and let that set. Should line up nicely. Give that a few seconds to set before you move on. Okay, grab your other side here and just make sure that we're doing this right. Yep, there we go. Get our glue on this. And get that lined up nicely. Just find that corner there on this side. Should pretty much hit that edge perfectly. And just hold it in place. There's some glitter on this DCWV paper, and I think that's why this has given me a little bit of a struggle, but it's not that bad. Okay, so that's on there nicely. And that looks good. Okay, so there's the little bottom there. And then we've got this little scallop piece. Again, you want to fold this in half, make sure that it folds on top of itself. And that's going to go around the top like this. Okay, so let's grab this little doily piece here and just get our glue. Make sure you get that glue right up to the top there, and then try your best to get it in between all those little scallops on the doily shape. And start by placing that right on the corner there, and then use your finger to kind of feel the top of the basket, and then you can press the rest of it into place. That should match up perfectly for you. Just like that. And just repeat the same thing on the other side. Again, when you fold this, it should fold right onto itself. And get your glue right along the edge, and then work little scalloped doilies there. I may have gotten a little bit too much there. All right, and then find the opposite corner, get that placed. Use your fingers to feel for the top of the basket there. And that should match up nicely on the other one. And there you go. And just kind of squeeze that and go around. All right. Make sure that those centers are nice and adhered. And there's the beginning of your little basket there. Okay, now our little basket is going to have two little flowers. That's what these two little pieces are, and they're going to go right in the center of the basket on the side opposite of where the handle goes. Okay, and we're going to glue that flat. And we're going to bling this out with some rhinestones and some pretty things there once we get that on there. So just pop that into place. Make sure it's nice and centered. Flip over to the opposite side and get that into place. And I'm using the center doily here, that scalloped doily, as my guide to get that nice and centered as well. Okay, now onto our little handle here. Actually, you know what? I don't even think we need to train this thing because it's so small. I think it's better that we don't train it. Unless you're using some really thick paper, then you may need to train it. but I'm not going to worry about it. So our handle is going to begin on the outside here. I'm just going to use a brad to hold it in place, and then just separate the little brad on the inside. Grab my other one and just round that out nicely. Pop your little brad through, spread the brad. Come on, Brad. Brad, you're a meanie today. I think this one's like glued shut. It is. That's why it was giving me a hard time. I think when they put the glitter on it, it kind of glued it shut. This one looks like it's separated. There we go. All right, so let's pop that in there. And then just spread that brad out. Now you have a little functional little handle. There we go. Cute. All right, and last but not least, we have a little flower that goes on top. It's made up of these pieces here. So what we're going to do is just kind of curl these petals a little bit to give them a little bit of life. Then we're going to take the smaller purple one and glue that to the center. And then we have a little stamen piece here. And then we're going to glue that to the top of the handle to make it nice and pretty. Okay, this one I'm just kind of wrapping around the dowel to give it a little more life. There we go. I can kind of crunch it in my hand a little bit. Just one little dot of glue. I think I just combined the word drop with dot. Dop. Okay, and offset it a little bit so it's not sitting right on top of itself. Okay, like that. And then we've got the little middle of the flower here. Just going to drop that right in the center. Make sure you've got it nice and centered and aligned. I had a little too much glue there. Okay, and I want to kind of bring this in a little bit more, give it a little more life. Spread the petals out like that. Kind of curl them in, I mean, not spread them out. There we go, that's cute. A little drop of glue on the bottom. And find the center of your handle. And just glue that right to the center. Whoops. I think these little dots there are fighting us a little bit, but there we go. Okay, so our basket is complete. It's ready to be filled and decorated with, well, not decorated, but filled with little goodies. Okay, well, we're pretty much ready to put all this stuff together now. So what we're going to do is we're going to find this piece here. Okay, this is the one that does not have the letter T on it. I'm going to put the letter T off to the side. I'm going to flip this upside down so I've got the smooth side up. And what we're going to do is we're going to glue these to this piece here. Now you want to make sure that you alternate the patterns so that the eggs are on opposite sides and the flowers, these flowers here, are on opposite sides as well. So this is very simple. We'll just get our glue onto the tab, get that glue out to the edge. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and line this up. This is perfectly square. So as long as you get that nice and lined up, let me make sure. There we go. And just push that down. And then fold it over again and kind of look at it from another angle just to make sure that you've got it nice and lined up. Sometimes when you fold it over like that, if you don't look underneath, you'll see that maybe one side of it is a little bit off. I actually got an email a couple days ago from someone saying, how come sometimes my tabs don't always line up perfectly? Well, this is kind of what I meant by, when you line them up and you glue them down, flip it over and take a look at the seam from this side as well to make sure that you've got things nice and lined up. Okay, so again, we want to make sure that we're alternating our pieces here. So I'm just going to work on the egg and make sure that I put it on the opposite side. Okay, get my glue all the way out to the edge there. And get that nice and lined up. I'm using my little mat here to kind of help me visualize this. Make sure that I'm getting it nice and lined up. Push that tab over. Give it a second to set initially, and then flip it over and take a look at it from this side as well. And maybe kind of scooch it around if you need to. There we go. All right, now onto our flower. Let's get our glue on this piece. There we go. Got a little overflow there on that side. It's okay though. All right, and let's match that up nicely. Oops. Here we go. Get it nice and aligned. That should kind of just fit and sandwich in between the other tabs there. Now let's flip that over. Make sure that that looks nice and aligned. It does, almost. That looks good. And just fold that. There we go. And last but not least, this piece here. Okay. Just do your best to get that nice and aligned. Pull that tab over. I know this is going to be off, I can already tell. So I'm going to hurry up and flip that over. Give it a little nudge. Not bad. Okay. All right, so that's in place. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece with the letter T on it, and we're going to pop that right in the center here. Make sure that it's nice and centered. And what I would do is kind of close this up just to make sure that that piece is nice and in the middle and that it fits nicely, which it does. It doesn't matter which way you put it. That letter T will eventually be covered up by the rest of the pieces that we're going to put down. So don't worry too much about the fact that it's there. It's got some really helpful guides for us that we're going to be using here in just a second. But we do want to make sure that we do get that nice and centered and that it's not obstructing any of the panels here. Okay, there we go. And just kind of run your finger along the perimeter. That's the most important thing right now. And let's just make sure that it closes up for us. And it does, so that's good. Making some progress here. Okay, so now we can go ahead and begin putting our little pieces in here. Okay, so I'm gonna grab my chick, okay? And the little guides here, they kind of give you a little boundary. You don't want to move it this way beyond the little boundary. You want to glue these little pieces within the confines of those little angled markers there. Okay, so make sure they're just within the little markers there. Okay, so that's going to get glued in place pretty much like that. Okay, so either way, let's just do it here so you can kind of see where we're going with this. And just get your glue on the tab here. The most important thing is that you get glue right to the bottom here. Okay, and then again, look at the little guides there. Make sure that you're not beyond the little guided areas there. I'll show you what I mean here. It's a little dark right there. There we go. Just like that. Okay, so that our little chick falls this way. And then the next piece, and again, you want to alternate chickens, little chicks and rabbits here. This guy's going to go right here. So we're going to kind of use this as our little guide for the rest of it, and that should match up with the little mark over here as well. So once you get the first one in place, the rest of them kind of go pretty easily. And again, just make sure you get that glue right up to the edge there. Okay, just like that. And you're alternating bunnies and chicks. So we're going to grab our next little chick here. And I'm going to get my glue on the bottom of the tab, right up to the edge on that. There we go. And I'm going to use this guy as my guide. It should meet nicely, and take a look for that little marker there. Having blackouts again. Not me personally, my power supply. Okay, and grab my last little bunny here, and he should fit perfectly within the little confines of the existing little animals here. So let's see if that's true. And it is, and he's within those boundaries. That's perfect. Okay, there we go. So that is looking sharp. And then finally, we've got this piece here. That's going to go right here in the center to cover up those little tabs. So go ahead and get your glue on this piece, maybe a nice thin line around the outside. Okay, get that in place. It's square. It doesn't really matter which way. Kind of get it nice and centered. There we go. And that, my friends, is pretty much it. So your basket, you can decide if you want to glue it or not. You don't have to, but you can go ahead and bring these tabs in, bring these in, and let me see if I can hold this while I grab my lid. Put our lid on here. Come on, lid. There we go. And there is our cute little explosion box. Again, take a look at the final photos on the website for our explosion box. You'll see the placements of some of the rhinestones and the additional bling that I'm going to put on this project off camera. But you can see how cute that is. And there'll also be a little bow that we're going to put on top of that. And then you just kind of hang the little tag off of your thing, off of your explosion box, and bam, you are all done. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video tutorial on our Easter explosion box. It really came out super cute. Again, I'm going to fill this with some spring colored grass, that fake grass, and then fill it with some candies and some Pez and some various things, and give them to a little child that I personally know. And that's pretty much it. So again, if you enjoyed this tutorial, take a second and hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. And I look forward to crafting with you again. Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.